freeze. Stay right where you are because it's time for GeorgiaCarry.org Radio with Doug and Jesse King. GeorgiaCarry.org is Georgia's no-compromise voice for gun owners. Stay tuned for valuable information on protecting your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And now, your host for GeorgiaCarry.org Radio, Doug and Jesse King.
Welcome, everybody. You're listening to GeorgiaCarry.org Radio, and this week we have a very special show. I'm really excited about this one, Jess, because we are going to be interviewing different local chapter heads from around the state, and I think that this is something that our listeners can really get involved with and see what Georgia Carry can do statewide, not just in the legislature or in the court system, but for them individually. And I think that, we've been to one of these meetings ourselves, and it was really a great time.
Well, I think it's important that we all know that it's not all just about legislature. There's a little bit of fun and games in here.
Yeah, and, when we start to talk to different people and, when GeorgiaCarry.org got founded, when it was first getting started, it was very Atlanta-centric. It was very where everybody was involved with the legislature, and they were trying to get bills passed and call their legislators and get things done. But there wasn't a lot of interaction between the members. And this is a big change where people are getting involved with each other, and you can see what's going on in all of these little individual chapters statewide. And I know that we've got someone who's going to be speaking from the south side of Atlanta. We've got the north end of the metro area. And we also have someone from Valdosta a little later on the show in our third segment who will talk about how each of their chapters is being slightly different and yet still promoting the general message of coming together as a community of gun owners, having similar goals in both legislature and in the court system, and being able to be involved with friends.
So our first guest is going to be a gentleman who knows that all work and no play makes Chris a dull boy. We have Chris from the south side of Atlanta, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yes, South Metro.
We're glad to have you today, Chris.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Well, you're very welcome, and we are really excited to be able to talk to you about what's going on. Now, your chapter remind me, but it's relatively new. Is that correct?
Yeah, brand new. We got one meeting under our belt so far.
And how did that meeting go?
Went good. We had it over in Fayetteville at the Broadway Diner, and we had Sheriff Babb over there with us, and Jerry Henry from the GeorgiaCarry.org, and we just had 57 people. We packed the place out and just had a great time.
That is a huge number of people. I know that from talking to some of the other different chapters, they're happy when they see 20 or 30. So you had almost 60, which is I think the largest number we've heard in all of our conversations around the state. So that is really an impressive number, especially for a first meeting.
Yeah, no doubt. We thought so as well. We were fired up about that.
And I'm sure that a lot of that came from having such a prestigious guest. I mean, everybody is statewide trying to get as many people in as they can to speak on different topics. But to have the elected sheriff, I mean, how did you accomplish that?
Well, Mike Strickland took care of that, and he did a great job. He lives in Fayette County, Mike does. So he was able to talk to the sheriff. And, when the sheriff came out, he was very instrumental in being community-based. That's what he wants. He said that's what he's into, and that's what is important to him, as he holds office there.
I have believed for a long time that one of the problems we have with law enforcement now is that it's not as community-based as it should be. So I'm glad to hear that they're trying to be more community-involved. That's always a good thing.
Right. I agree.
Now, you have some future meetings coming up soon?
Yeah. Our second meeting right now is scheduled for April the 23rd at 7 p.m. We're going to be at the American Heritage Gun Range over in McDonough.
Oh, wow.
And we're actually going to meet for about 30 minutes or so, and then we're going to shoot as a group, which is going to be fun.
That's kind of a change. I mean, I haven't heard of anyone else holding one of these meetings at a range before, so that's really a good opportunity. I mean, that's something that we hear all the time, especially people who are on message boards or discussion forums.
Those gun rights groups, they do a bunch of stuff together, but they never shoot.
Yeah, they never shoot. They never even fire their guns, so that's really a good opportunity for people to get together and shoot and to be able to, actually back up whether they can hit a target or not.
Right. It was important to me when Mike and I got together and wanted to start this group that it be fellowship based, and to me the best way to do that with a group of shooters is to shoot. So I'm really looking forward to it. I hope we have another big crowd.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic, and we're really excited about everything that's going on down there. Now, if you said you had 60 people, were they all GeorgiaCarry.org members when they came?
No, not necessarily. We had some that were members, some were not, and this is open to whoever. You don't necessarily have to be a member. It would be helpful down the line if you did that. It's very inexpensive, to join in and have a vested interest in legislation, in Georgia about gun laws and that. But it's open to anybody.
So tell us one thing. How much does it cost to join Georgia Carry?
It's $20 per year. And then they have other plans where I think they even have a lifetime member where you can just drop $500 and be a lifetime member, and there's other plans you can do. But you're talking $20, for the year. And, to be part of something like that is it's minuscule.
And so much fun. I've had so much fun being involved with Georgia Carry as far as I have been.
No doubt.
So, we're talking about how you can get involved, and, if you're a Georgia Carry member, then you're going to get the emails and the updates and the newsletters and know when all these things are. If you're not a GeorgiaCarry.org member already, how is a good way for new people to find out when you're going to be holding meetings or what's going to be going on in your local chapter?
Okay, well, you can go to our Facebook page. Mike started a Facebook page for us. It's South Metro GeorgiaCarry.org. You can join that. That's where we do most of our communication, or you can email me directly at gunowner1972.com.
That's a fantastic email and very memorable, so I'm sure that our listeners will be able to if they're listening live, hopefully remember it. If not, they can always go to GeorgiaCarry.org and listen to our recorded shows and write it down in the future so they can get in contact with you and maybe get some new people out to your already bulging numbers down there.
Yes, I hope so. Bring it on.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you calling in today and giving us an update on what's going on down there. It's an exciting thing to be seeing that these local chapters are getting started. Here's one that just started with its first meeting just a little while ago. Now they're already moving into a gun range. Is that going to be something that's going to be a regular thing, or are you going to be moving it around more in the future?
Yeah, we're probably going to move it around until we kind of find out where our central base is as far as members or, people that are coming to the meetings, and then we'll probably settle down at some point.
Hey, I figure if you have a base of operations, you can go there every once in a while and get out and do other things as well. It sounds like you guys have a plan.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Here, once it gets a little warmer, we're thinking about going down south to Clybell to the outdoor range and doing a cookout and then just a complete day social down there one day. So
that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, I was actually going to try to plan to come out to your thing on the 23rd myself.
Please, bring it on. We'd love to have you.
That sounds great. All right, folks, we are coming up on a commercial break in just a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for calling in. We really appreciate your time, and we will hopefully have you on again in the near future to discuss other things that are going on in your local chapter.
Not a problem. I enjoyed it, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
All righty.
And folks, that's the beauty of these local chapters is that you've got people who are getting involved and who are getting interested, and it's local, and you can get in with people that you know.
People that are just like you.
Who have, similar interests. And, it's the same thing as, you go on to these meetup groups and you find people who are interested in canning or interested in backyard chickens or interested in hiking or interested in, and they have, meetup.com, and you find people with similar interests from all walks of life. You might join a hiking group and there'll be a doctor and there'll be a plumber and there'll be, a high school teacher and, a stay-at-home mom, and everybody's enjoying hiking, and so they get together and have a common interest. Well, that's exactly what GeorgiaCarry.org is doing here. Is it's getting people who are interested in firearms and protecting rights and individual liberty and giving them a chance to get together and talk about the issues of the day, to fellowship. The South Side's their mission is to fellowship and get together, and that's why they're bringing it to a gun range where people can go and shoot and have a good time with each other and interact and just bring together the camaraderie of a group.
It's always good to have someone to have that camaraderie with too, somebody you can share it with. And me as a gun enthusiast, I didn't have anybody till I had Doug.
And it's such an easy sport to get separated with because, it's an individual sport.
Yeah.
When you're out there shooting, it's only you. It's your, focus. It's your talents. It's your abilities. And there's no team effort. There's nobody else helping you. It just has to be you. But that leads to, kind of a feeling like, well, you need to be out there on a range by yourself. And there are some people who are even afraid to go shoot in front of other people because they're embarrassed about their skill or their lack of skill or, how things are going to go. But we need to break down these walls, and we need to come together as more than just people who can get the email to call in and bug your legislator to fix a bill. We need to be a group. We need to be a team.
And have a giant picnic with everybody, get everybody together and get to know one another.
Well, that's what the convention has been for. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that not everyone can make a convention once a year. It's a big deal, and a lot of people take time off of work and make the journey to where the convention is being held. I think this year it's going to be in Atlanta. I know in future years it may be, Savannah or other places. But no matter where the convention is, it's going to be a drive for some people across the state to be there. And the timing may not be opportune. You never know what's going to be coming up in life. But if you have these smaller meetings that are periodic, every month or 2 months when there's a big get-together and you get 60 people together to talk about it, that's fantastic. Well, folks, we are at our commercial break, so we will be right back with another group leader to talk about these small groups that are going on in Georgia Carry. You are listening to the voice of GeorgiaCarry.org, GeorgiaCarry.org Radio.
Now, back to GeorgiaCarry.org Radio with Doug and Jesse King.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to GeorgiaCarry.org Radio. And like we said earlier, this week is a special show because we're bringing in people from all around the state to talk about their local chapters and what's going on in the local chapters around Georgia. And we just got off the phone with someone from, the south side of Atlanta. After this segment, we're going to be moving into the north side of Atlanta. But right now, on the phone, we have Mr. James Rankhorn from Valdosta, who is hitting up a very exciting chapter. Jesse and I were down there 2 weeks ago to their chapter meeting. It was, I think, their fourth or fifth that they've done. It was a fantastic meeting. And so, Mr. Rankhorn, James, thank you for coming on the show. We're very happy to have you.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate y'all giving me a call and letting me be on the show and talk about our chapter a little bit.
So tell me, we were down there and we saw the last meeting. It was really a good number. How many people did you have there?
We had 25 at the last meeting. Our record currently is 31. We had up at a meeting in Tifton, not this past meeting, but the one before.
Okay.
So getting a pretty good crowd going.
And do you have a lot of regulars now? You've had several meetings, so are you starting to get to know everybody down there?
Absolutely, yeah. We have a core group of about 10 or 12 folks that show up at every meeting, and then, a lot of them bring friends and families and coworkers and just people who are interested in what Georgia Carry is doing. And, they don't have to be members. Anybody can come. You don't already have to be a member. If you like what you hear, you can sign up at the meeting. And so, we have folks that bring visitors all the time. And so it's a really good opportunity to kind of get to know some of the members and kind of understand what Georgia Carry mission is locally.
Now, you had, when we were down there and we were talking to you, you had mentioned to both of us that you were doing a special presentation on children and gun safety. How did that go?
It went really well. We've done a presentation at UGA Tifton for their Employee Safety Week, and then we're going to start doing it locally. Any organization locally here in Valdosta that wants us to come and do that presentation for them, I think it's really important for us to get the word out to parents to be able to talk to their kids, even if they don't own guns, even if they don't like guns. No matter politically where they fall, guns are a fact of life in America, and so you need to be able to protect your children just like you would, from swimming pools or knives or garage tools or anything like that.
This is the same program we had Mr. Podowitz on last week to talk about, wasn't it?
Yes, it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome.
He actually gave me that program for free. He's been talking via email over the last probably 9 to 10 months, and just kind of talking back and forth about how to promote the program and things like that. And so when the local chapter started, like Doug said, this was our fourth meeting. So 4 meetings ago when our chapter started, it's one of the biggest things that I wanted to focus on in the Valdosta Lowndes County area down here in South Georgia was the education part. You know, we do the lobbying, we do the legislative stuff, but I want to get into educating people and getting some firearm safety training and stuff out in the community.
And I saw that when we were down there because you had a local area attorney come in and talk about trusts and NFA weapons, which is a topic near and dear to my heart.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, I think that that's fantastic. There's so many people who have no, you know, conception that you can own things like a suppressor or a short-barreled rifle or a shotgun or a machine gun, much less that there are better legal tools in purchasing it in order to provide for inheritance and to safeguard those items during your ownership. And I think that's great that you've reached out to people who come into these small groups and discuss, you know, topics that will educate, inform, and make them, you know, more able to make wise, logical decisions on their firearms ownership.
Yeah, that was another thing that, you know, one of the reasons why I wanted to start the South Georgia chapter was not only education of the community, but education of our members. You know, we do meet and greets, and a lot of organizations do, and it's usually you meet up at a range, you shoot some guns, you go home, and you know, you meet some friends, but you're no more smarter or wiser for it. And so my idea was to just come and have the same group of people show up and then educate them, give them something interesting besides just the, hey, how you doing, how's your family and them. But so this time I talked to Roy Baker, a local attorney out of Thomasville, Moultrie area over there, and he come and spent, you know, the entire evening with us and answered questions and talked about the NFA trust and how to set them up and what they were good for and how to use them. And I think our membership got a lot of good information from him out of that, and we're able to have a Q&A with him, you know, face to face without having to, he said, she said, that this other person said. You know, you got it straight from an attorney, a legal expert on the matter, and was able to get your questions answered.
Yeah, exactly. And so what sort of guests are you hoping to have in the future with more chapter meetings?
As the chapter goes on, I'm hoping that, you know, as the legislative session dies down, that maybe we can get some local representatives in and have them come and talk about not only gun laws, but things that they're passionate about, you know, and if our membership agrees with that or finds a connection there, maybe we can help them with some campaigning stuff and things like that, and just anything gun-related, maybe some self-defense stuff, non-gun self-defense, situational awareness, just anything that can fit in a 15 to 30-minute window that I think the membership would be interested in hearing.
Now, I know you have a very interesting local rep down there who had sponsored a bill this session.
Representative Dexter Sharper?
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
yeah, we're trying to get him on the air.
He actually has already, I spoke with him this week, and he has agreed to come on next week's show.
Oh, wow. Really? You didn't tell me this.
Awesome.
Yes, he has agreed to come on next week's show with us to discuss his bill about mandatory training.
Yeah, he's a very nice guy. I've met him one time before here locally, a super nice guy. Little misguided in his legislative efforts, but you know, he's a nice guy, and I think I'd be interested to hear him on your show. I think it'd be a good conversation to have.
Well, we're both very interested in this as well, so we will, of course, invite you to listen in next week after this show airs. We're going to have Mr. Sharper on to discuss his bill with us and hopefully get to the bottom of his ideas of what's important. And so, you know, you reaching out to your legislators is a fantastic thing to be doing with the local chapter. And I've heard it many times that, you know, if your local rep doesn't know you when you're walking down the street, then you're not doing your job to really influence and lobby for the bills we need.
So I have a question for James.
Sure.
How do you pick the restaurant where we meet at? Because I want to put in a request for Mama June's down there. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, next one we'll do at Mama June's. It'll be we do them every other month. So the May one, I'm trying to get a hold of a local range to where we can go out and actually do a barbecue and have the range to ourselves and do a barbecue and shoot some guns and do some stuff like that.
Would that be the local range that's next to the state prison down there?
Yes, that is the one that I am working with.
Oops, I missed.
I don't know that they're going to let us do it, but I am talking to them to see if we can find a date that works for us and works for the range as well. And if not, there's a couple of other ranges locally here that we can talk to and try to get something set up for that. So maybe the July meeting we'll do something at Mama June's and y'all can come down again and visit with us. I
think July would be perfect because we might even take a whole week to come down and visit you guys in July.
You got a guest bedroom, right, James?
Yes, I do. I have an RV. I'll just plug the RV up and turn the air conditioner on. Y'all can stay in it.
We can call it the ice box. It'll be awesome.
That'd be cool.
All right.
Oh, my goodness.
So we're coming up on a commercial break, James, and we really appreciate you calling in and giving us all this heads up on what you're doing down there. And it sounds like a fantastic, way for people to get involved. And like you said, you don't have to be a member to come to your meeting. You can come and find out and learn something, whether you're a member or not. But if I'm not a member, I'm not getting the emails, I'm not getting the updates. How do I find out about when your meetings are going to be?
Two ways. One, you can email me. My email is rankhornjp@gmail.com. It's rankhornjp@gmail.com. Or we have a Facebook page, Valdosta Lounge, GeorgiaCarry.org on Facebook. You can just find us on Facebook, request to join. I do all the events on there and do updates and different things like that on the Facebook page. So either one of those two ways.
Very cool. And I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of listeners. I know we're working hard on trying to get onto a local station down there in Valdosta, but if anyone's listening to us on the GeorgiaCarry.org website and hears this and wants to get involved, reach out to James, get in touch with him, get involved, get some good food. I mean, the one we went to was at Austin Steakhouse right off of exit, I think it's 16 on 75, and we had some great prime rib and steaks there and nice salads and a good time of just fellowship and learning about, all sorts of different things. And I remember we had some questions when we were right at the end, and someone had asked about M855 ammo ban, and I, being the shy guy that I am,
Right.
kind of grudgingly offered my opinion on what had been going on based on what we had learned through prepping for this show the week before, and it was really a great time. I enjoyed myself immensely. So
Now, they can come out to one of these events and join, right?
Yes, absolutely. I usually bring memberships packets with me when I come to a meeting. So if you bring a loved one or a coworker or anybody like that, and they decide they want to join, they can join up right there at the meeting.
Awesome. Well, folks, we are coming up on a commercial break, so we're going to say goodbye to Mr. Rankhorn. Thank you so much for coming on the air with us. And when we come back, we are going to be speaking with a gentleman from the north end of the metro Atlanta area who had just had a meeting this past week, and we'll see what's going on that side of the city. Right now, you are listening to GeorgiaCarry.org radio, and we will be right back.
And now, back to GeorgiaCarry.org radio with Doug and Jesse King.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to GeorgiaCarry.org radio, and we've had two great segments where we've been talking to people all over the state about these local chapters and how you can get involved locally and meet people and get engaged. And this is just a fantastic opportunity. And so we've heard from the south side of Atlanta. We've heard from Valdosta. The next person is going to be from the north end, up in the north metro area. And we have Don Towers on the line with us, who is a very excited person about how to get more people involved in Georgia Carry. Don, welcome to the show, and we really appreciate you coming on.
Hey guys, Doug and Jesse, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're really glad that you're here. Now, our listeners have been listening in on a whole bunch of different projects that are going on in these local chapters. When was your last meeting?
Well, we just had a meeting this week. We've actually had two meetings. We had our first inaugural meeting in January, end of January, and we just had our meeting on Wednesday night. And had a great time, great turnout at a local restaurant here in Marietta.
You were at Williamson Brothers Barbecue, weren't you?
That is correct. Williamson Brothers was great to allow us to come in. We had a separate room and kind of standing room only, and we had a great time. We actually had tried to have themes with our meetings. It's not just a matter. I mean, one of the things we like to do is socialize, obviously, and break bread with our fellow Georgia Carry members, but we also like to have a little theme. We had a theme about women and firearms on this in this past meeting.
Well, that's interesting. You said a local area restaurant, and I want to make sure that Williamson Brothers got mentioned, because any restaurant that is willing to embrace open carry and embrace a gun rights group is A-OK in our book. In fact, something Jesse and I have been discussing is asking our listeners to call in to the show and let us know which restaurants in their area are gun friendly, and maybe get a little bit of the word out for them and a little bit of free advertising.
Yeah, absolutely.
We actually have a friend in the area that does that for kind of Metro Atlanta.
Yeah, a little shout out to Mark Gilbert. He tends to go into all sorts of stores, open carrying, and see what they do to him. And sometimes it's positive, and sometimes
he
not.
rates them on Facebook.
This is true. And if you can, allow me to get a shout out to Tijuana Joe's, also in Marietta. They were very friendly towards us. We had the young waitresses coming up and asking for Gun Save Lives buttons. So a good time was had by all in January as well. So shout out to them as well.
Well, very cool.
Amazing.
Is that one of the restaurants where the waitresses wear a whole bunch of buttons?
No, I don't think so. I can't remember now.
They didn't have flair.
I don't think they had flair. No flair.
I was going to say, maybe we could have a contest to see if they're still wearing them a couple months later.
That's true. That's a good idea. We gave a few out, though.
That's awesome.
That's
and
great.
I love those buttons. My son
Your son has
one.
a collector's of button, a whole collection of those little buttons. Like he's got a camouflage one and an orange one, and
yeah, we're proud of our Gun Save Lives buttons around here. That's for sure. So you said that the last meeting was about women, and what was the theme of the first meeting?
Well, the first meeting was really just our inaugural meeting. It was our first one. We basically just wanted to gather together as many as we could. We actually were very fortunate to have Jerry Henry come over, John Monroe, Tim Parker. So we had board members and we had Jerry Henry. And basically it was just a chance for everybody to have a social gathering. We talked a little bit about what was going on with really what Georgia Carry Radio has been doing, talking about legislative updates, talking about things that are moving through in the courts and that kind of thing. So it was really just a first meeting and not really particularly organized. It was more of a social thing to get people together. And if I may, talk a little bit about why we're doing this, why we're doing the chapters. One of the things, I think you probably talked a little bit about this, Georgia Carry is pretty much is mostly an online presence, and there's not as many chances to socialize and get together. And one of the things that we thought was great was that we can actually meet with members, we can talk with them, we can basically have a chance to break bread together, socialize, but also talk about issues. And it's a little more personal. It's a little more. This about people. It's a people organization. Georgia Carry is all about people. And I know board members have said, I know Jerry Henry said they're the public face, but he always says, and the board members always emphasize that it's the people in Georgia Carry, it's the members that make stuff happen. And having a Carry chapter in the various places in Valdosta and South Metro and North Atlanta, it's a place for members to actually meet, to congregate, to talk about issues, and actually maybe exchange some information, some views about what's going on. It also tends to, we thought, and we think it does, we think it is, it's building up excitement and just making people want to be more involved in activities,
I also see
activities, and things like that.
It's a good opportunity to network within one organization already.
Absolutely.
So if you've got a speeding ticket last year, you might run across Mr. King here who can help you out, you know?
Exactly. You run across people who are, what they're doing on training, what their favorite gun is for carry, how they carry, lots of discussions about gun laws, lots of discussions about what can Georgia Carry do, what can individuals do to help Georgia Carry, calling representatives, calling their state senators, and just getting involved in what the mission of Georgia Carry is, which is basically to improve. One of the main missions is to improve the gun laws, the firearm laws here in the state of Georgia.
And, you know, you're talking about this kind of FaceTime where people get together and are with each other and have some chance to see each other. And one thing that hasn't been, explicitly mentioned in our previous interviews today, but has been kind of a theme, I think, is that every meeting has someone from the board of Georgia Carry there. So down in Valdosta this last time, Chuck Turney was down there. In the South Metro, Jerry Henry was there. You hear about Chris Parker being at this one here up in the North Metro. There's always somebody from the board there who gets some
exactly
time.
Right. And Tim Parker was at our Williamson Brothers meeting, and he's there to answer questions and also give a little update on here's what's going on, here's what some of the things that at the board level view of what's going on. So it's really valuable, and members really appreciate that.
We're actually looking at having some of the board members on the show so everybody can get to know who they are and what they do.
That's a great idea.
I think that will be important in coming days, so you know who all these people are. They're kind of scattered around statewide, but this is a place where we can bring them together. You can hear from Tim Parker even if you live in Valdosta, or hear from Chuck Turney even if you live up in Blairsville, and that way you get a little bit more rounded, and you can hear from Madman James Camp in person.
Yes, indeed.
So, what do you have coming up in the future for more chapter meetings? What's next on your plate?
Well, we're probably looking at, one of the things we're trying to do is do some more fun shoots, and I think we've had we had one that we just tried and it really wasn't very well attended, but we're going to try to do some more fun shoots at local gun ranges. That's probably going to be next month. Right now we're doing a regular chapter meeting, which is a sit down and have a dinner and talk about issues type meeting every 2 months. So our next official chapter meeting is going to be in May, and we're actually looking at kids and guns that you had Matt on one of your previous radio shows. We're actually looking at having something themed with that. We're looking at themes about somebody to come and talk to us about gun laws, maybe talk about prepping, and there's a few other subjects that we're probably going to explore in the coming months.
Well, if there's any way we can help you, just let us know.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people around here who have a little bit of experience in gun laws and prepping. So,
absolutely, absolutely. We're all about leveraging and inviting experts and people who have a passion for those subjects to come and talk to and to educate us and to make us think about things. So absolutely, that's exactly as you saw with the women and firearms session that we had.
You had the well-armed lady come out, didn't you?
We had the well-armed lady. We had 3 members from the well-armed lady talking about women and why they should have a firearm, women in hunting, and also talked about women and firearms training.
Well, that's
some of those considerations.
And this isn't something that you have to be a GeorgiaCarry.org member.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We want non-members to come. Of course, we're going to have some materials there, so we're going to try to make a non-member into a member. But yes, it's absolutely. We want people that are non-members to come and see what we're about and see what Georgia Carry's about, so they can basically learn about what's going on with Georgia Carry. Matter of fact, the restaurant staff. And folks that are around us learn about Georgia Carry too. And they said, "Oh, I didn't know anything about this," and I didn't know. They listen to what we're talking about as we're giving our talks. So it's kind of you get a lot of people that have never been exposed to what we're doing. All of a sudden, learn. It's a different venue to be able to expose the organization to other people that haven't heard anything about us.
So, of course, our members get the newsletter, but how do non-members find out about when your next meeting is?
Well, all the chapters are on Facebook, so our primary communications venue is Facebook. So if they would just search onto Facebook at North Atlanta GeorgiaCarry.org, just look North Atlanta GeorgiaCarry.org. They'll find us. They'll find all the information. They'll find the latest events and activities that we're involved in.
We got to thank you so much for coming on today. We really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, Don, it was fantastic, and we really appreciate your time and educating our listeners about what's going on in the North Georgia chapter.
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate your having me.
All right, we will talk to you again in the near future to see what else is going on in North Georgia. In the meantime, folks, stay tuned. When we come back from this commercial break, we will be discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly this week in Georgia and around the country and world and what's been happening for gun rights. You're listening to GeorgiaCarry.org Radio, the voice of Georgia Carry.
Now, back to GeorgiaCarry.org Radio with Doug and Jesse King.
Welcome back, everybody. We are in our final segment this week, and this show has just flown by as we've talked to people from around the state on how to get involved in these local chapters and how to get involved in Georgia Carry. And, you can find out on Facebook if you want to just go and explore and learn about the organization that way. You can go to these meetings and talk to people and get involved. You can even just go to any local gun show or most of the local festivals and events and find a GeorgiaCarry.org table staffed by volunteers who are trying to get people more involved with the organization.
You can also go to GeorgiaCarry.org itself, and there's a tab there for membership. You can go and sign up for membership and pay online.
Yeah, and then you can start getting the emails and the updates in the newsletter and find out where all these things are happening and what's going on. And, of course, you can listen in to us and find out what's happened in the last week or so. But to get, up-to-the-minute changes in the legislative bills to know what's going on, the best way is to always become a member and become part of something larger than yourself. So, every week we try to do a segment on what's been going on around the state and around the world and how it affects gun owners here in Georgia, and we call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, Jesse, what's the good this week?
The good this week is that GCO finally got to present oral arguments before the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and it was in our suit against the Firearms for Self-Protection ban on the Corps of Engineer-controlled properties.
Well, this is a big deal to me because I've been itching to take my son fishing up on Lake Allatoona, which is Army Corps of Engineers property, and there's a ban on being able to defend yourself there.
And see, I'm so scared if I go fishing at Allatoona, we're going to get some of those Walking Dead-style zombies, and I won't have a gun to cap them with.
I'm more afraid of the people who have been knocking people over the head with
raping
a brick
them
on the walkways. Yeah. I mean, you look at the Silver Comet Trail and up there at Red Top Mountain, which is right next to that Army Corps of Engineers land. It's a gun-free zone there, and there you've got people who are meaning to do you harm.
It's funny. All these gun-free zones are the only ones that are having gun violence. It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Although, I used to always say, well, you never see people getting shot on a shooting range, but then you got the whole Chris Kyle fiasco, so that kind of took that one right out the window.
So anyway, the case was heard last week, but the ruling won't come down for another few months because, well, they've got to make a ruling on it. So it's one more step towards the end result, but we're not quite there yet. The bad is, the whole city of New York City is a gun-free zone. Mm-hmm. They've had a 22% increase in shooting since they've made that a gun-free zone.
Wow.
So what's up with this? You disarm the good people and the bad people who have guns and don't tell you. They just take over and start shooting people.
Well, New York is quite the interesting place. The former mayor, Michael Bloomberg, has been waging a war on personal protection as long as he's been in power. He's a billionaire, and he's dropping $50 million to try to eradicate the people's right to defend themselves in their homes and elsewhere. He's made a coalition of mayors who all sign on to try to deprive their citizenry of their fundamental constitutional rights. And here again we see the fruit of that effort and labor, which is just more violence, more people being hurt, more victims that cry out for a government to take care of them instead of being able to take care of themselves.
So just like you just said, the city of New York, they invest a lot of money into resources, both into making sure people don't have guns on the streets. But while they're decreasing the whole stop and frisk thing, where the police should stop and frisk anyone at random for guns and drugs, a practice that's a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment, they still have other means of keeping tabs on people, but it doesn't really do anything to make them safer. It's supposed to be a really safe place to live, New York City.
Yeah, sure.
Walk down the street at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can hear the footsteps behind you of the criminal that's following you. I don't see that as safe. But already this year, they've had 184 shooting victims, which represents a 22% increase compared to last year at this time. It's kind of scary, isn't it?
And this is after Michael Bloomberg did his lawsuit against a local gun dealership and tried to staunch the flow of illegal firearms into his perfect city.
Well, right here it shows that when you disarm the honest people, it hurts the honest people. They have no way to defend themselves against the dishonest ones.
Absolutely.
Now, this week's ugly is not me. I had my coffee this morning.
I'm kind of, I know that we've got a fantastic ugly there, but I think that, given the events of this week, that there's something a little more local and a little more ugly than I think that the M855 ban back and forth and in Congress could possibly be.
So hit me.
Well,
don't hit me, but
what's been on my mind this week has been the shooting incident in Smyrna, where the police officers were involved in apprehending a suspect with a warrant and ended up shooting and killing him. And I know everybody who's listening to this has heard the news and maybe even more recent updates than I have. But the story was that the gentleman who was shot and killed had some sort of a traffic citation that he was on probation for. That could have been anything from a speeding ticket to a DUI. I haven't heard at this point, but whatever it was. He was on probation in a municipality for it. Next thing you know, he's got a warrant because of a probation violation for not paying fines or fees or doing what he was court ordered to do. Although he's on probation, so they don't consider him to be a direct threat because he's out on probation. Otherwise, he would have been incarcerated. And then next thing you know, he's running from the police, and there are conflicting stories. Shopkeepers there are saying that he wasn't driving towards the police. The police were saying that they were in fear for their lives, which is, of course, the magic words.
A witness says that the gentleman was getting back into the car as he was hailed with a rain of gunfire. I
mean, it's at this point, the only way that I can describe what's going on right now is ugly.
It is ugly, and I'm afraid it's going to get more ugly before it clears itself up, because this thing could go in front of a grand jury, and I'm afraid it could turn into something akin to Ferguson. Yeah.
And I think that this is terrible. And I'm not saying that the police did anything wrong. I'm not saying that the gentleman who died that day did anything wrong.
I'm going to say this. There are no warrants that are worth running from to lose your life over. If you have a warrant, don't try to run from the police, because they may use that as an excuse to shoot you.
And there are very, very few warrants that are worth killing somebody over either. I mean, that door swings both ways.
I agree. But I believe that the fatal mistake here was trying to run from the warrant. If he had just turned himself in when they came after him, he would maybe be in jail, but at least he'd still be alive.
And I agree.
At least we would hope.
I agree with that. But if some of the reports from the eyewitnesses or storekeepers or maybe some CCTV video comes to light in the near future, if it's not as cut and dried as that, it's just an ugly thing. No matter which way this went down, whether it's the law enforcement made the mistake or the young man made the mistake, it doesn't really matter. It's an ugly situation. And these are situations that we as concealed carry, as we as activists in the legislature, as we as concerned human beings looking out around our country need to be aware of and need to take focus on.
I think that these police are the ones that need the gun training. We have legislature right now that's laws that are trying to be passed. There are bills in our legislature about firearms training, and it seems to me like our police are trained to draw and shoot, but when that reaction is appropriate and when not, that training has not been given to them.
It's a different rubric to think about too, because for myself, I consider the possibility if I carry a gun that I might have to shoot someone or take someone's life. So what is the impetus that I have to look for when I'm going to make that life or death decision? Well, the answer is, am I afraid for myself or another person? You have a reasonable fear of severe bodily injury and or death. If I can say yes, then I'm justified in shooting someone.
Well, I'm going to say from the pictures I saw of the Maserati young man was driving, if he'd been trying to run over the police officer, wouldn't there have been bullet holes in the windshield?
Like I said, I don't know the specifics, but what I do know is that when I make that decision on whether to shoot someone, the life or death decision under the law that I'm required to make, the odds of me having to make that choice in my life are probably 1 in 10,000.
However, with an officer, it could happen any day, every day.
Could have, and I think the odds of an officer having to make that decision is probably more like 1 in 2 or 1 in 3. So, I mean, it's a different way of thinking about it. It's a different level of responsibility. It's a different level of probability of having to make that choice. And officers need to be well trained, and they need to be cared for psychologically in dealing with this situation. Because a lot of officers, they get bitter, they get into a rut, they have all these pressures from their department, and then with all of that on them too, they have to make perfect life or death decisions involving someone who may make a wrong choice. And here, if that kid ran, he made the wrong choice. And I have no compunction saying that if you're having a warrant served on you, get a good lawyer and fight it. Don't try to run from it. But on the other hand, if that kid made the wrong choice and ran, if he tried to run someone over, that's something. But, it's an ugly, ugly situation. So if that's what's going on, it's something we just need to be mindful of. And especially as someone who would carry a gun, because you might be in that situation.
And you need to know for sure that when you pull that trigger, there was no other option.
We talk about active shooter scenarios sometimes, and in future shows we may talk about that more, but, you come in on a situation and you think, oh, here's the bad guy, here's the good guy, but how do you really know? How do you know?
I'm more scared of a police officer being the reason that I'm in an active shooter scenario than I am someone in the just general public.
I don't have any statistics or information to prove or disprove that kind of hypothesis. But
as I said, and I watch the news and I see so many shootings and so many people getting shot by the police, and it's been quite a high rate since the beginning of this year.
Well, it's a self-selecting sample with the news. The news is on a news cycle where they're looking for these things. And I'm honestly kind of shocked that we haven't had a lot more attention on the Smyrna thing at this point as we're talking about it today.
Oh, in the news on Wednesday, the mother had requested an FBI investigation. So it's just building up.
Well, DOJ went after Ferguson and came out and said that it was a racket. Their municipal court system was a racket, and I wonder if Smyrna's municipal court system can stand up to the same scrutiny. Anyway, folks, we're coming up on the final commercial break. We're taking off for this week. I hope that you guys had a great time listening to all these chapter meetings around the state, enjoyed our quick synopsis of the news, and tune back in next week. If you're not listening to us on a local channel, contact a local channel. Get them in touch with us. Get them to carry us. If you're listening to us off of the GeorgiaCarry.org website or some other broadcast, then thank you for tuning in, and we will be back next week, hopefully with a state rep to talk about mandatory training. This is GeorgiaCarry.org Radio, the voice of Georgia Carry.
This has been GeorgiaCarry.org Radio with Doug and Jesse King. GeorgiaCarry.org is Georgia's no-compromise voice for gun owners. Tune in each week for valuable information on protecting your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. GeorgiaCarry.org